Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Lawn Care CEO podcast. My name is Dan Ralphs. I'm here with the CEO of the Lawn Care CEO, Aaron Suttonfield. And we would like to welcome you to episode number 12, the tens and tens of people that are listening to us right now. We're very excited. We're very excited to be with you. We, you know, One of the things that we care a lot about is we obviously care about helping you guys do more good in the world. And we've avoided probably one of the most important topics that we should be talking about because we wanted to start with, hey, let's talk about people. Let's talk about building your team. Let's talk about making sure you know your numbers and you're dialed in on your finances. Let's make sure the business is built. As Aaron would put it, he's like, let's make sure that we've got a rocket ship before we put fuel in the rocket, right? Like we don't drive the fuel truck out to the plank until the rocket is built and ready to take off. And so and we'll continue, by the way, talking about finances and numbers and all that stuff because it never goes away. But we thought it would be time for us to talk a little bit about the rocket fuel. And the rocket fuel is marketing, and the rocket fuel is how do we bring clients to our doorstep so that we can really grow and so that we can hit the numbers that we want to hit. And for some of you who haven't had the lead volume that you're looking for, and by the way, this year I think has been a little bit down across the industry. Would you agree with that, Aaron, that maybe it's not quite COVID level numbers coming in anymore?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is the lawn care industry was greatly positively impacted by COVID.
Yeah.
And I guess it is state dependent now. Like, I mean, I know we cover the whole country here. So, I mean, there are states where I've heard Jonas Olson, for example, talk about having to leave Michigan because could not work. So
Mm.
it's state specific. But if your state allowed lawn care to take place, which in hindsight was a good decision because it was outdoors, and we all know, I won't get into COVID, but it was, much safer outdoors than it was indoors, right?
Yeah.
According to the data. So lawn care was doing well.
Yep.
People were getting this stimulus money and they were staying home. And so marketing in 2020, if you're comparing your numbers to 2020 and 2021 and even 2022, I think it's not wise. Don't beat yourself up. I would probably, if you've been in business long enough, I'd want to compare numbers. My company has been in business for 28 years, so I'm comparing my numbers more to 2019 and
And that's what I
2018
had somebody
as a
say. I
comparison.
had somebody say, it feels like we're back pre-COVID, right? It feels like we're back to
Mhm.
normal a little bit when it comes to the numbers. So maybe it's not down, but just down compared to, some of those big
It's certainly
inflated
down
COVID
compared to
numbers. Yeah.
COVID, right? But also, I mean, you think about too. Like I think people are spending money other ways too. Like I mean, if in 2021 I couldn't go anywhere, so I was like, make my house awesome, build me a resort style. Dan, you're putting a pool in your yard right now,
I
right?
am.
I mean, people were kind of like, give me the resort at home because I can't go to a
But
resort. I think
this
now
is
people are
interesting because
probably
I am putting a pool in right now. It's strictly for medicinal purposes, I promise. But we're putting a pool in at our house, and what's interesting is I reached out to the guy who's building our pool, and where before he was waiting forever to get things done, he's like, all the workers are available because we were fat and happy during COVID, especially in Arizona building pools, and now that business has gone way down. So again, back to the norm. Moral of the story, back to the norm. Um,
yep.
and so today we want to talk to you about marketing. We want to approach it just a little bit differently, though. We're not going to talk about the fancy, cutting edge tactics that are available out there. We're not going to be talking about the, the secret sauce on Facebook that if you geo target the perfect location, you can create a honeypot factor. Like there are a lot of cool things out there that can be talked about when it comes to marketing. But our goal today is to talk specifically about what the fundamentals are. So, Aaron, you're a basketball guy, and you grew up understanding basketball, and I loved it because the coaches would always say, "We're trying to just get back to the fundamentals, right?" And what are the fundamentals of basketball? Dribbling, passing, shooting.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, yeah, you can't. You can't score unless you can dribble, right? So, You don't get on the court unless you play defense, right? So you're not going to score if you can't play
Yep.
defense. On the teams I coach.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, the fundamentals are the things that most people don't want to go. I'll give you a better example, Dan. If a golf example,
Mm.
you if you were to play a par 72 course, this is basic math, so it's not tricky, and you hit every green in regulation, and you two putt, and you par. Um, Believe the math is that would be 36 putts. Okay, so you with me
Yep. 36 putts. I'm
now?
with you.
Right. What club in your bag do you think you would hit 36 times? What other club in your bag do you think you would hold 36 times? You don't hit a driver
I
36
mean,
times. There's 18 holes.
at the
You
way
don't hit a
the way
driver
that
on
I
18
hit my
on
wedge, probably my wedge because I'm like all over the place. But
18. But again, assuming like right, you hit this, and the point is this, right? When you go to a driving range, do you see people putting or hitting the driver?
yeah, yeah,
Always hitting the driver, right? And so I had a golf pro tell me, you want to become a better golfer, you need to putt. You need to practice putting. And so I think what we're talking about today with marketing is there's a list of things that you and I have talked about before this call that we think people skip over and they go hit the
yeah,
driver of marketing, which is digital, right? Which is, all
yeah.
these
Cool Facebook
all these fancy
advertising,
things,
TikTok
right?
targeted ads, YouTube channels.
And,
Yeah,
and listen, you're not going to be a par set. You're not going to be a par golfer. You're not going to ever shoot 72 on the golf course if you can't hit the driver. You're not going to hit.
yeah.
You're not going
Those
to make
those things are
shoot
important,
72s. Yeah,
but that's not the
but if
fundamentals. It's not
you
the basics. Yeah,
right, if you ignore putting, you will never be a good golfer. And the majority of average golfers ignore putting,
yeah.
and it's a fact. And
Mm.
so we believe what we're talking about here is the average small business owner that we talk to is skipping over some really basic low hanging fruit. I haven't read the book in many, many years, but there was a great book, Guerrilla Marketing,
Yeah.
which is, probably talks about some of these things. I wonder if they've updated it it was written in the 80s or
John
90s. And
Jancich, something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
but again, this is kind of guerrilla marketing, right? I mean, not kind of, this is guerrilla marketing. All the things we're going to talk about today are things that you control, that sometimes better than some marketing agency would know about your market or your place, right? And so that's the spirit of this call. So if you got on this call thinking you're going to hear about SEO cool tricks or blog posts you need to make, or that's not what this call is about. And it's not that those aren't important. We love those things. I implore or implement many of those things, and I hire people to help me with these things. Big believer in them. Obviously, my mentor used to say, which ones of these marketing things should you do? All the ones you can afford and have time for, right? so, but if you can't afford all of them, which one should you do? We believe this is the start.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I agree. It's the foundation, and all of us should prioritize doing these things as well as we can before moving on to the other things. And a lot of times, like, just to pop up a little bit even higher level, when we're leading companies, we got to get these foundational things right across the board in any one of the categories we're talking about. When we're coaching companies, our number one priority is to get the fundamentals right, make sure that we're solid in those areas. And then if we still have room to grow, we can add some flourish, we can add some additional pieces, but we want to make sure the fundamentals are in place. This is why, like, very beginning, we go, hey, know your numbers. That's why we say at the very beginning, hey, make sure you understand your vision, your core values, your vision, your purpose, your mission. At the very beginning, we say, hey, make sure you have the key members of your team in place. It's like all of those things are just sound business. And so today we're going to talk about the marketing of sound business. All right, let's get started.
cool. You want me to start?
Yeah, kick us off.
All right. All right. We kind of made a little list here. So we talked about, and Dan, you actually brought this up. This was
That's
yours
right.
actually. It was like, how many clients do I need? You had an example. We'll remove the names to protect the innocent here, but you mentioned that you had worked with a company, and you're like, they were surprised at how few clients they needed or few leads they needed to reach some goals that they had set. They're a growing, smaller company. more sales driven company, right? So they were doing less reoccurring work and more project based type things.
Yeah.
And so, like you just want to kind of reverse engineer this, right? I can use my company as an example,
Sure.
Dan. We've been kind of plateaued around the 800 to 900 leads a year, and close rates around 50%.
There's some guy
Um,
listening right now that's like, you jerk. How dare you plateau at 800, 900? That's a good number.
it is. I mean, there's people doing far more than that, and we
Sure.
want to figure that out. But I'll tell you, we're very niche specific. So if you're listening to this for the first time, we're talking about a residential fertilization weed control company. That's it. We don't mow, don't do landscaping. Matter of fact, the key word for us is lawn care. So that means a lot of things, right? Mulching. It seems like maybe 2 out of every 5.5 calls we tell three of those or so that we don't provide something they're calling
Yeah.
for.
And
So we're kind of
you're not
weeding
even
through
counting those
people.
in your lead count, probably.
It just depends. They could be getting mixed in there,
Yeah.
depending on how they come in, if they fill out a form. But yeah, we. But at any rate, so we're our goal is we reverse engineered this in our annual meeting this year. So if you've listened before, these are great strategic working on the business things, and we realized we know how many clients we lose every year. So if you're we're 1,400 clients in our company, you're going to lose clients at that size, right? Now, if you're a project based company or you have 25 awesome commercial clients, you probably don't lose as many clients,
Yeah.
but everybody loses clients at some point. And so what's your attrition rate? What's that look like for you? So we reverse engineered this. We knew that attrition was around 15 to 16%. And so we basically said, okay, if we learn how to get 1,250 leads, we lose about 240. I'm going off the top of my head. So if you're doing the calculator on this call and I'm
If
wrong,
you're doing that, if you have a
don't hold me
calculator
accountable.
right now, you're a nerd. Knock it off. This is just principles.
but we were like, okay, if we could get 1,250 leads, lose less than 240 clients, close 50%, we would net gain the equivalent of a truck a year in our
Yeah.
business, which is really great. It's like 400 to 500 clients
Yeah.
a year, net gain, right? And so that's reverse engineering the problem, right? How many clients do I need? So our goal now is like 1,250 leads.
Yep.
Like everything we're
Yep.
measuring is, are we on track to
And
get to
that's
that
going to be
number?
different for everyone. The answer is not as many as possible. The answer is not as many as
Oh
possible
no.
because in order for us, depend like the size of our rocket depends on how much fuel we put in the rocket. So it's not going to be the same for everyone. We want to set a generally and kind of an annual goal for growth. Like Aaron said, he's like, I want to add a truck a year. That's a great little growth rate for his company. Someday he'll probably have it be 2 trucks a year, and it'll keep growing. But so you want to
Well,
figure out where you want to be for your company, and then say, hey, listen, we need, for us to be healthy, we need, it could be as few as 20 leads a month or 40 leads a month, or like Aaron, it could be 1,200 leads a month, or maybe for some of you, it's 2,500 leads a month. So whatever your number is, we want to get clear around that number because we can't design a plan to generate that number if not. And the place where I see that some people missing is that we had one client that was stressed about marketing. He was like, man, I just can't, I don't know what I'm going to do in marketing. And he was feeling all panicky and urgent about it. When we actually did the math as far as how many he needed to hit his annual revenue goal, he was already there. And we're like, dude, you don't have a marketing problem. And this brings me to our second point. So point number one is we want to identify and really nail down our lead volume. But the second thing we want to make sure we're doing right and doing well is we want to make sure that our sales process is solid and sound, because the number of leads we need is going to vary greatly depending on one important number, which is our conversion rate. So if we have a really high conversion rate, then we need fewer leads, right? So if I'm bringing in 100 leads, my conversion rate, and I want to get 50 new clients and I have a 50% conversion rate, well, we're in a great spot because I'm going to get 50 new clients that year. If I want to get 50 new clients, but my conversion rate's 25%, well, rather than me going and fixing and generating more leads, which I would have to generate now double the lead volume, it may be easier for me to work on my sales process. Maybe it means I'm picking up the phone on the first ring, or I'm hiring a service that picks up the phone in the first ring. It might be that I'm turning around my quotes faster so that people are getting a quote in their inbox and can say yes before they go shop around. It might be that I'm being a little bit more compelling and persuasive when I'm on site with a client and I'm quoting their landscaping project, and I'm validating my expertise, and I'm helping them catch a vision of what makes us different and why we're higher quality. So there are a lot of different ways. This call isn't about our sales process. It's simply to recognize and honor the fact that at the end of the day, we got to make sure our sales process is solid before we go spend a lot of time and money and effort generating a ton more leads. Let's first find out how many we need, and how many we need if we had a really great sales process. Because sometimes the very first thing you can do, in fact, I was on a call yesterday with someone, and I said, before we get into marketing, because he was like, what do I do for marketing? I said, how many leads do you need? And he told me how many clients he needed. I said, how many do you have in the pipeline right now that aren't being converted? And he said, essentially as many as I need. And I said, so what you're saying is you have enough people currently in your pipeline to meet your monthly goal. He was like, yeah. I said, so let's first make sure we attend to those that are already raising their hand and saying yes before we spin our wheels trying to find more. So let's really optimize and maximize those in the pipeline. So let's not get distracted by marketing when we're not turning around our invoices or our estimates. And when we're not collecting the cash we have, we're not taking care of those clients who've already raised their hand. We prioritize that first. Is that kind of making sense, Aaron?
Yeah. I mean, and again, like some things that come to mind here, like if you're listening to this and you're really getting a lot out of this, you're probably a smaller company, right? So admittedly, this is probably geared to a more of a startup. And so, you know, you may
By the way,
even
in my head, Aaron,
still,
I just pictured a guy that's like at 3 million in revenue a year going, oh, dang. Oh, dang, this is actually really helpful for me too. Maybe I'm off. No matter where you're at,
well,
but we are gearing it
and
for
maybe you
maybe a
are,
little smaller company. But there's some
well,
fundamentals. You might be off on your fundamentals. We met plenty of big companies that are off on their fundamentals.
but we coach some big companies too, Dan, that are doing the wrong work,
Yeah.
right? Like they're trying to like refocus. So, but you know, if you're a new company and you're talking about sales process, right? I'm a big proponent of selling as much as you can over the phone.
Mm.
And I think that's the best long-term strategy, right? Over through email, phone, responding quickly within an hour. But if you're a brand new company, let's say you're a brand new fertilization weed control company and you've got like 60 clients, right? And so I've got a friend who does this that I used to coach a little bit up in New Jersey, Jersey Dave, and I know Jersey Dave. He wouldn't mind me sharing this with you guys. He's awesome dude, but I know he is very involved in going out and trying to connect with those people quickly. You know, he's working neighborhoods, and so you may have a strategy early on that is I go try to talk to as many people quickly as possible. Right? Maybe I'm getting on the phone with them quickly. And you know, if they want to meet in person, maybe I'm that guy who meets in person early, right? But the bottom line is you got to touch them quickly within hours at the
Yeah.
most, like an hour, or if you're answering live,
Yeah.
that's even
The
better.
ideal, by the way, Aaron,
And
the ideal conversion rate, like just across all industries, 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes is the rule of thumb. Now, obviously,
yeah,
like that's perfect. If we're at 24 hours right now, let's move it closer to an hour. If we're an hour right now, let's move it closer to half an hour. If we're half an hour,
minutes.
we keep moving until we get to about that
Yeah,
5 minute mark.
and if at some point you have to commit and invest in answering and giving an estimate, like answering
Mm,
and giving an estimate. Because let's face it, if I'm calling around looking for services and you don't answer, probably not leaving a voicemail, not waiting. Uh, our society's not doing that. Another thing that came up that I was thinking about here, Dan, that came from our good friend Court Hall over at Harold's. Court grew a small company up, and he told me something. He was doing fertilization weed control, and he told me that he learned that if he went and sprayed yards on Saturdays, that other people were home and they would walk up to his truck and
mm,
say, "Hey, can you give me a quote? Can you?" And he said, you know, whereas on a Monday, you know, nobody bothered him, but on Saturday, and he said, I had two ways of looking at it. I was not trying to be productive on that Saturday. I was not trying to get production done, I was looking at sales opportunities. So if you're a brand new company and you're like, man, how do I get 25 clients this week? Or how do I get, an extra few clients? Are you willing to go spray on Saturdays, from, and again, 9 a.m. to probably 1 p.m. would probably be the window, right? When people are going to be around their yard, kind of starting their day. Can you be just one neighborhood all day, right? Like don't skip a bunch of neighborhoods.
That's
So
interesting.
process, selling, all those are some little tricks that, if you're trying to get over this hump of getting your first 100 clients or getting to 300 or 400 clients, these are great tactics. Which brings us to the third thing, Dan, like who is the audience?
Mm,
What's the client avatar? That's another word we hear a lot, right? Um, you know, for my customer base, I was telling you on this earlier, the average client value for our company is like $75 a visit,
yep.
right? Across all of our 1,300 and some, it's almost 1,400 now, clients. And so, there's a lot of people who can afford what we do.
Yeah.
It's great, that's what I love about our
Well,
service,
and I
right?
love that you
And
you
so,
dialed in your customer avatar for your company to where it was pretty. I mean, you know them. You know exactly how many kids they have. I mean, tell us about how dialed it is for you.
yeah. Yeah. So for us, it's neighborhoods. It's planned communities usually like, and sometimes, the term you hear cookie cutter neighborhood, right? Where some of the houses look the same. Those are great places for us to hunt. I love, if I'm riding through the neighborhood and we see a lot of like toys in the yard and a lot of like bicycles or kids are playing in a park somewhere, probably the people who want to have, outdoors a lot, right? Those are probably going to have some dads who are kind of grass nerds and want to cut nice grass on the weekend and kind of, show up Tom the neighbor or whatever, right? And so again, what are we doing? We're selling green, weed-free lawns. That's our deal, right? And so, those neighborhoods offer us the ability to get in there. They typically have smaller sizes, right? Their average yard is somewhere around 5 to 6,000 square feet. So it's a very affordable service for that client. And I'll tell you something I've learned, and our team sometimes will say, "Oh, hey, this such and such called us, man. They live in a $2.4 million house," and I'm like, "Cool. They're probably going to pay the same amount as the other person that has a yard similar size, right? Like we're not going to make more money off of the rich client than we do off of a middle class person." And so that's a wonderful thing for us. My mentor told me one time, it's live with the masses, work for the classes, work for the masses, live with the classes, right? So if you can get more people to buy your services, that's typically a better thing in business, right? And so for what we're doing,
Yeah.
we don't care to have this real matter of fact.
Hmm.
If you live in a $2 million house, you're probably not hiring someone just to treat the lawn. You're hiring a full scale company. And so if I were a full scale high end company, I would need to know those really upper end neighborhoods. I'd probably be like houses above $800,000 in my market, or
Yep.
over a million, right? Depending on where you are. And so, who's the audience? What are they
Well,
looking
and let me
for,
let me
right?
comment
So
just one thing on that, Aaron. Um, one of the things you just noticed that Aaron said is I have a product, because you sell basically one thing three different ways. I have one product, and that product, I'm very clear about who my target market is for that product. If you're listening to this and you have like 12 things you sell, like it almost each one of those might have its own market and target. And so like we won't get into, right now, because we want to get to more of the marketing stuff, cutting down your product line and all of that. But really the first part of marketing in any industry, this is like, if you were to go get your MBA, they'd say the place where marketing starts is with the product, and knowing what your product is and knowing who it serves and knowing there's a need in the market for that thing. And so if you're starting with this and you're listening to us, think, all right, what's my one product that's the most profitable, the easiest to produce, the easiest to sell? And let me start thinking about what's the target for that product. And that will be a good place for you to practice the things we're about to teach you in that one area, because it's very hard to do it well in 12 different areas. Or if you do tree and shrub and bed and install and like go down the list, pretty soon you're like, ooh, that's probably too many things for me to be good at knowing my customer avatar for each one of those. So I won't go too far into that, but just a little warning.
Yeah.
If this is feeling overwhelming, or you're like, I kind of serve all the people. Well, usually that's because you sell so many different products. It's hard to narrow down to just one.
Yeah. Jack of all trades, master of none,
Mm-hmm.
typically too, right?
Okay, so Aaron,
And so,
so let me
yeah.
ask you.
So
So if
audience.
you're once I know my audience, all right, got that down. Once got my audience, know my product, I feel confident that my sales process is healthy. Um, what are the beginning blocking and tackling actual marketing activities I do? Because we're 25 minutes in, we haven't even talked about
There's
marketing
yeah,
activities.
there's
So walk me through the
there's one other thing we've
fundamentals.
got to
Oh,
know.
one more thing.
So target audience, this like the B to that is what's the area, right?
Oh,
Service
good
area.
point.
And so I'll give you a good example. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. There's almost 3 million people now here, and the mistake I made is I didn't try to market to all 3 million, but I served an area that was about 1 million people. And in hindsight, that's probably too many. I found that my marketing dollars got diluted early on because I didn't have a ton of them, and it just it, it just was too many. And so if you're sitting in a community and you're like, dude, I got 50,000 people, shut up. The reality is, it's you can't make that mistake there. If you're in a market with 200 and 300, 400,000 people, we coach people that have markets that have that many people. You're going to be protected a little bit. But if you're in a big market, you need to be careful not to bite off too much, because just like Dan was talking about having too many services, you're not going to be able to market too many services because the budget's going to be way too big. I've yet to meet somebody, Dan, who came to us and said, hey, guys, awesome news. I've got $3 million in the bank. I want to go market 12 services and build this, $200 million company.
Nope.
I've yet to see it.
Nope.
I wasn't that way. I'm assuming if you're listening to this podcast that you're probably not that way as well. And so the reason we don't want to market too many services, you don't have the money. And the reason I don't want you to market to 1 million or 2 million people off the bat is you probably don't have the money to reach them. And so you're just not going to have enough punch behind your money, right? And so if you shrink that area down a little bit, you'll be able to punch a little bit harder and be a little more effective.
There's an old saying, riches are in the niches. And so as we narrow down into a small area
yep.
with a very clear understanding of who we're trying to go after, that leads us to, all right, here's what we're going to actually spend our time doing.
Dominate this smaller area. And when you're dominating that area and you got great, density there, then go dominate another one. So the next thing is we need to be recognizable, right? So we're talking here about logo, character, color palette that you use on your stuff. It's real tempting to like. I remember, Dan, they may not have run these commercials in Arizona back in the day, but we've got this thing called the Biltmore House in North Carolina. And the Biltmore House is known for having these beautiful grounds. It's just an amazing place. You've probably, have you visited it? Because you guys lived in Nashville for a little while, did y'all?
But I'm familiar with the brand, the Biltmore brand, for sure.
Right. And so they used to run these commercials for Ford back in the 90s, and they would show their trucks on the land, right, doing all these beautiful landscapes. And they were beautiful trucks. They were like a beige color, and they had green lettering on them, and they were just gorgeous trucks. Like I was kind of getting in the business at that time, and it's like, oh, those are beautiful trucks. Here's the reality. That if I were to take that beautiful beige green, like landscapey color and put it on the road, it would probably blend in to the landscape. And if I'm trying to get noticed, what colors do you think stand out? I mean, and again, if you've been following other podcasts and things, you know this trick, right? Like, there's guys that are running pink trucks. There's guys that are running neon green. There's people running, they're standing out. I run like an orange, like a Home Depot orange color on my trucks and have a very recognizable character. The reality is this, the prettiest real estate sign blends in, right? Like the loudest real estate sign stands out. And when I'm trying to sell something, I need to be seen.
Yep.
So as you're going through this, you need to be seen. You need to be recognizable. I need to be memorable, right? I don't care how awesome your name is. Your name's probably not going to be memorable. Some are, right?
Yeah.
Weed Man, Lawn Doctor. There's a few, depending on, but if you're D&D landscaping, or Tim and Mary's landscape, whatever, right? T&M, you see all those kinds of things. That's not going to be memorable. I mean, my name is RDS Lawn Care. That name means more to me than anybody. It's named after my father and my brother who passed away, and it's the family name. I mean, but listen, nobody cares about
Nope.
that name, and so we realized we need to market and brand some type. And for us, it was a character. It was the green thumb guy. And so in my market, somebody introduces me to a new friend or somebody they know. They'll say, "Hey, this is Aaron.
Yep.
He owns the
Eh,
lawn care company. They've got a green thumb and orange trucks, right?" And that's memorable. And so you need to be
Yeah, the rule
recognizable.
of
You
thumb
need to
is
stand
they
out.
need to be able to remember your name and or how to, like, your coloring, your brand, your logo, like 5 days later, and when they're thinking about lawn care, right? So it's like it has to be enough to where they go, it's not that when they see it they're like, oh yeah, I know that name. It has to be remembered 5 days later. And so as long as
The
you're
other
bright
thing,
and colorful enough and clear enough that they can go, oh, I remember my neighbor's guy was here, and I think he was like the green thumb guy.
but but also when you're wrapping truck, and I've wrapped tons of trucks. I've spent tons of money on some bad wraps in the years. I mean, honestly, Dan, this may be a little debatable, but if you're talking to some marketing people, I'm actually not running phone numbers. I'm not running a list of services. I'm not running any of those things on my trucks. I'm running my character and the name of my company. There's no website, there's no phone number on any of our trucks now. Because what we've learned is, first of all, if you're driving 75 miles an hour down the road and you see my trucks, are you really like, unless somebody's in the car, if you're by yourself, you're not writing that number down.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're remembering the name real quick and you're Googling it later. You might even be going, "Hey Siri, call RDS Lawn Care," right? And so, don't have a messy design truck. It needs to be very clean and clear. And I need to be able to look at your truck and go, "That's a lighting company. That's a lawn fertilization company. That is a landscape design installation
Yeah.
company. That is a mowing company." Like whatever you're trying to be, or, "Oh, that is a high end, full scale."
Yeah,
Look at
don't be
that.
the
I know
commercial
what
where
they
you
are,
get to
right?
the end of the commercial and you're like, wait, what was that commercial about? I have no idea what they were advertising.
Yes.
So we want to be clear, we want to be clean, we want to, even if your brand, your personal brand is a little understated, don't be afraid to put some loud colors out there, be noticed. Don't be obnoxious,
Yep.
but be clean and bright, and memorable is the key word. Memorable is the key word.
Oh, I'll give a shout out to one of our favorite people. We talked to a good bit, and he won't mind this, but Will Hall from uh, oh Turf Hippos, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're purple. They have this big hippo. Man, if I'm going through neighborhoods and I see Turf Hippo, I'm going to
Yeah.
remember. Like that's going to be
And
memorable
so
to
and so
me.
this is where, like, we talk about wrap, so getting that logo, getting that brand strong, and then wrapping your trucks. Because what's better than a billboard parked out in front of your house, as far as like you literally can go park your billboard all over town in the neighborhoods you're working, in the neighborhoods that you want other clients to, for route density. So step one, wrap your trucks. Step two is to get a yard sign, a small,
Mhm.
what how big are your signs? Maybe 1 foot by 2 foot or something.
Like it's like a 8.5 by 11
Eight and a half
paper,
by
but it's a
11
die
page.
cut of our character,
You're
right? I'll tell you this real quick on the wrap truck
yeah.
sign. So think about this: as your company grows, right? How what's going to happen? More trucks. What does more trucks means? More eyeballs, right? I just remember this. I about, gosh, this is probably 20 years ago now. I didn't wrap my trucks, but I actually had unlogoed trucks for a period of time. Just I didn't believe in this. I didn't know the power of it, and so I invested, and I had a logo put on the side of our white trucks, right? And so our white trucks go drive around. They're pulling bobcats and they're landscaping and things like that years ago. And I had people come up to me and go, "I see your trucks everywhere," and I'm like, "Really?" I had three trucks. Three. It was three trucks on the road. And people are going, "Dude, I see y'all everywhere." And I mean so don't sleep on, if you have a truck, it needs to be wrapped. If I were Dan, knowing what I know at this point in the game, I would I'm not a bit advocate of borrowing money for marketing, but in this case, I would put a wrap on a Visa card and pay it back over the next 6 to 12 months, And Dave Ramsey would, strangle me for recommending that. But the bottom line is, if I don't know you're out there doing this work and you're driving around all over your market and you're a solo operator
Yeah.
right now, or you have 2 or 3 trucks, get the trucks wrapped. If you decide to do a half wrap or do something that's more affordable for in the beginning, get noticed, right? The yard sign, the truck, all that needs to work together. There's
Well,
tons
and
of graphic
there's a
designers.
deep psychological reason for this. So when I'm making a buying decision, I'm working to feel safe that I'm not going to mess up the decision. We as human beings are pack animals. So if I see you out in front of my neighbor's house and I think my neighbor's not an idiot, uh, I'm going to think, all right, if I don't know what else to do, I'm going to do the thing that my neighbor does. And so we want to be in those neighborhoods and with wrap trucks and yard signs where we're putting a yard sign in the yard so that we're literally kind of advertising this is our handiwork. Only do that, by the way, if you do good work, because otherwise you don't want them to know. So you're going to put a yard sign in the yard, and you're going to say, "Hey," and the neighbor is allowed to say, "If I do like my neighbor, I'm safe." And that's an important psychological barrier we have to overcome in the sales process. Is I need to feel safe and I need to have trust. And these two things very easily we can do to have the neighbor look over and go, "Oh, I know our neighbor does this. If I do that thing, I'm like them, and therefore I'm not going to be embarrassed by making a bad decision."
Dan, if I were doing landscape lighting, we coach the landscape
Yeah.
lighting companies. If I were doing landscape lighting, I would put a sign in every yard I did. Now it would be a bigger, like real estate type sign. This yard, watch, something to the effect of watch this yard tonight or something like, I'd want people going, let me see. I'm going to ride by and see what they did, right? I would want people to know landscape lighting went in there and, I want to come back for the show. Christmas lights, we used to do that. I would put little yard signs in the yard, I'd our character would put a hat on it, that kind of thing. I'd want to tell that neighborhood that this person got Christmas lights and here's who did it, right? And so don't sleep on yard signs. It is hands down the best money we spend. I think I'm spending 50 cents a sign, Dan. I would spend $2 a sign. Like do not get cheap on this. By the way, if you go get the square one that looks like everybody else's, and it's just
Mm.
you're not going to stand out, and so you're going to just blend into the True Greens of the world or whoever else. If you're doing landscape lighting, get a bigger sign that you're going to plop in there while you're doing a project, right? If you're doing landscaping, man, hey, this yard's under construction for landscape design by X or whatever, right? Like just listen, neighbors are the nosiest people alive, right? And
For
and
sure.
so you mentioned something earlier, only put it in good yards. I'll tell you, Dan, I love putting our signs in the worst yard in the neighborhood because the neighbors will watch and they will watch for the next, 8 or 9 months and they'll watch that yard transform. And you will not believe how many people call us and go, I watched you turn around
Yeah.
the worst yard in the neighborhood. I want to do
Yeah.
business with you. And so this is a long play sometimes, but it works.
Yeah,
We're
I'm
getting
thinking to
close
myself,
on
it just
time.
dawned on
Oh,
me, I'm
sorry.
building this pool in my backyard, right? And how smart it would
Yeah.
it have been if my pool builder was like, even if it was a sign that said something like, "Pardon our dust, Titan Pools working here, um, you know, let us know if we can do anything to better the neighborhood or something." Like just some obvious
Yeah.
sign that seems kind of
Yeah.
service oriented, but now everyone knows,
Pool
one, I'm
party.
building a pool. Two, I chose Titan Pools out of all the other pool builders, and that three, that they're polite and respectful and are doing nice things. And that would be a very low cost thing for him to get advertising in the neighborhood that he knows where people are building pools and buying pools.
Especially given the cost of a pool.
Yeah,
If you're doing high end landscapes and you don't have a sign parked in that yard for 3 months while you're doing a $200,000 landscape, and you're not saying, "Hey, pardon our mess, we're beautifying, making the lawn of their dreams or making the outdoor kitchen of their dreams or whatever," right? Like, dude, go have a custom sign made for each yard that says, the Ralphs are having an awesome pool built. Like, how much is that? Like $20, and you're spending, you don't have to tell everybody, but I mean, thousands, right?
a
And so,
lot more than 1,000. Yes.
yeah, and so your marketing should match the cost of what you're trying to sell. And again, I remember, Dan, when I was doing landscape installs, like these guys don't need hundreds and thousands of clients. They need like 10 to 20
Yep.
really good
Yep.
clients a year, you know. And so again, back to number one, like how many clients do I need? Your marketing should match that. And we're
Yep.
just giving you a bunch of ideas
And
because we work
yeah,
with a
I'm
bunch of
gonna have
different
to.
people.
I am
Um,
working with my pool builder. This is what happens when they work with us. I'm like, okay, dude, we need to coach you on your business a little bit because his truck isn't
uh,
wrapped. Right, he pulls up and hangs out in front of my house all the time. It's not wrapped. There's no sign out in front. Um, dear, my poor pool builder. Hopefully, he's not listening to this, and we're throwing him under the bus. But by the way, builds great pools. Here, little free promotion. Titan Pools, Queen Creek, Arizona, builds a great pool, but needs to work on the marketing stuff.
so, all right, so yard signs, it's easy, right? But now, you know, what if you're, you know, door hangers? Like everybody knows this, probably this is
Yep.
nothing new, but 9 arounds, door hangers, letting people around you know. If I'm a small one man show and I'm trying to gain 100 clients this year, I'm trying to gain 200 clients this year, I'm going to do all those things. If I'm not doing those things, you know, the digital and all that stuff
Yeah.
is it's not. We don't need to get to there. We need to do these
Fundamentals.
small things first.
Fundamentals.
Listen, if you're really hungry and you're like, I mean, I talk to people, Dan, that we don't coach, but we talk to a lot of people and we try to help a little bit. You know, if you're brand new and you're like, hey, I want to start this division, whatever that is, could be lighting, could be, you know, treating yards, whatever, go knock a few doors. Like walk up to the door, knock on it and say, hey, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just want to let you know I'm here. I'm treating your neighbor's yard. If I could ever help you,
Yep.
yeah, just let me
On
know.
that
Here's my
Saturday
card.
where you're just out doing a little work,
Yep.
you're gonna say hello to every neighbor you bump into, and ask them about their life and their day, and get to
And
closing.
listen, you know, door to door sales is a whole different thing. That's not really door to door sales. That's just saying, "Hey, I'm here." If that person says, "Tell me more about what you do," now I'm ready to sell, right? But if they're like, "Oh, we're not interested," "Oh, hey, have a great day. I just want to let you know I was here. Here's my card. If I can ever help you, give me a
So
call."
let's talk
But you know,
as we're turning the corner here. Let's talk about a little bit of online stuff because it's not only these kind of guerrilla marketing, grassroots
yep,
tactics. We need to do a few more. So we're doing our trucks are all wrapped beautifully. We've got a great logo. We're in the right neighborhoods. We put up the yard signs. We're starting to do the door hangers around. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we could share a good example of that. You know, maybe email us info at uh, ceocoach.biz if you want a good example of what a good yard sign might look like. But then there's the powerhouse, the juggernaut of marketing when it comes to the service industry is Google. Google is still, and has been for a very long time, is still the juggernaut of what it means to be a great, like you have to have some game when it comes to Google if you really want to hit the lead volumes you're looking for. And just think about it. Like for me, like if when we shop for this pool we're building, we'll use that example. Like what did we do? My wife and I Googled. We did two things, by the way. So here are the two things we did. We went to Facebook. Hey, we're thinking about building a pool. Everybody who knows someone that is would be a good pool builder in our area, let me know. So that was thing one. So by the way, one of the great things you can do in marketing, take really good care of your customers, be a great provider of services that is worthy of recommendation. And so that's, you know, one thing we didn't talk about that because we think that's given for you guys that are listening. But it's important. Don't screw over your customers. Don't build a brand in your community. But so that was one of the things we did. But the thing I want to talk about is the second thing we did is we Googled pool builders near me. And when I Google that, what Google does is it presents a couple of things. One is some paid advertising. And by the way, raise your hand at home if you skip over the paid advertising, because you know it's paid advertising. You skip over the paid advertising and you go to the portion that has a little map next to it. And then there are 3 names of service providers in my area. And then there's a little button at the bottom that says show more. Well, one of the very best things we can do, and we can talk for a few minutes here, Aaron, about what we can do to be a member of that 3-name club. Because if you're on that 3-name list, all of a sudden, you know, you have a lot more business than you know what to do with. And that may be the number one thing as far as a fundamental that you can do well and focus on is making sure you're a part of that list. So Aaron, give me like a few
Yep.
tactics. If I'm like, I'm not on that
Yeah.
list, what do
So
I do?
you got to go to the Google My Business. I think that's what they're still calling it
Okay.
now. You got to, you know, take over your name, right? Get control of your name on Google My Business. And you've got to optimize that. If you're, write this down. Go Google how to optimize your Google My Business page. Go through the steps. It's very basic. You need to have your address correct on there. You need to have. There's even some really cool things you can do with service area on there. Identify where you want to service, and then upload some pictures of your work. I've heard using an iPhone with location on it is helpful. Google likes that. Just load that thing up with information about your company, pictures, and then get reviews, right? Like, it's pretty standard. I could talk for 30 minutes about how to optimize your page. Go Google it and follow the steps. The reality, though, is that if you can get reviews, that's
Yeah.
going to be huge for your company. And so I believe you need to get to 100 reviews as quick as possible.
And again,
And
think about it, Aaron. Like when I'm making my decision about which pool company to go with, I look at two things. I look at their name, and then the next thing listed is number of reviews, and then the rating out of 5. And if I see somebody who has 4 reviews and they're 5 stars, I go, oh, that's cute. They're a brand new company. They don't do anything. Like their uncle and their mother-in-law reviewed them. And I skip down to the next one. And I need them to have, and this is why you said this, around 100 reviews with a 4.7, 4.8 or better for me to even consider them. And maybe I'm too snooty and I won't deal with a 4.6 or a 4.3. But the trouble is that I'm choosing between a 4.9, a 4.8, a 4.7, and a 4.2. Well, the 4.2 gets tossed out. And I'm also choosing between somebody who has 150 reviews, 89 reviews, and someone who has 12. Well, the 12 gets tossed out. And so to really work hard to make sure that we are well reviewed, i.e. high rating, but we also have a high volume of reviews. So Aaron, you have a smart strategy around this.
yeah,
Would you be willing to share your strategy that's
yeah,
working really well?
this is working really well for us. We have actually started, incentivizing our team, our techs, when they go out, route managers, to ask for reviews. It's a real simple strategy. When we walk up and we knock on every door that we treat.
Hmm.
So we're going to naturally, we don't believe we should walk into your yard without telling you we're there. It's just, common courtesy. And so we're going to knock the door, announce our visit. Now we're going to knock the door and we're going to immediately start walking back to the truck to start working. And if they open the door, we're halfway down the sidewalk, we say, hey, just letting you know we're here. Everything good? And we're going to have this like kind of a conversation that clearly says, I'm not here to talk, I'm here to work, right? It's a little trick we've been doing for years. But I've learned that if you have a conversation with that client and the yard looks nice, everything's, they've been on the program a while, they're doing really well. The first thing our guys are trained to do is say, are you satisfied with your service? And if they go, oh, we love our service, the yard has never looked better. And they whip out a card and it has a QR code on it and it has a place for them to write their name. The technician writes his name or her name and they hand them the card and say, would you be willing to give us a review? And don't stop there. If you mention my name, I get credit for that review. Now, what I've learned, Dan, is that when a technician asks for a review and the technician gets credit for the review, the client is much more eager to give the company a review than if I even walked out there and said, hey, would you give my company a review? We love to help the person who's working for the company. Like we want to tip. Some of our clients actually do tip occasionally, especially around Christmas. They'll hey, I want to make sure the regular guy gets a tip. We have that happen quite a bit. But this is a way they can essentially tip the technician. And so, Dan, last week, our team of 4 route managers are going out every day. They got 10 reviews last week. For the month of May, I'm looking at the KPIs.
Reviews.
They got 27.
27.
They got 27
in 1
reviews
month.
for the month. Mm-hmm.
27
All
five
five
star
stars.
reviews. That's just
Mm-hmm. And
like, that is
yep.
Google, like Google's
And
drinking that
here's
up
the
and
other
loving
cool
it.
thing. If you do go read our reviews, and I recommend you do, you'll actually notice that different names are in there. Hey, Johnny does a great job on our yard. Brooks does an awesome job in our yard. Chris does a great job. Brandon's awesome, right? Like, it's and I think it's really genuine to see that, and it is genuine, right? They gave Johnny a review for his work,
Yep.
and so we reward the technicians for reviews that have their name in it, and so it's working really well. A better strategy that I'm going to employ, and my friend Ted Glazer shared this one with us a few weeks ago, and I love it. He's like, "Hey, I love what you're doing, but the reality is, how many people are home? How many people do your guys talk to? The reality is, not very many,
Yep.
right out of the scheme of things. Like if we visit, 100 yards a day as a company, we might talk to 10 to 15, possibly, right? So like less than 10% probably. And so we're just not going to have as much opportunity. But he said, every house you visit, you can leave a door hanger. And this is what he does. It's really cool. And I'm actually going to pull it up just to show you. It says, he calls it the growth report, and it has current conditions of the yard: watering, too wet, too dry, looks good; mowing height, too tall, too short, looks good; issues we notice. There's a few things they could check, like tree and shrub problems, bare spots, turf, mosquitoes, lawn fungus, things like that, right? And then it says call us right away to resolve any issues noted above. Stay off the lawn for a period of time. But here's what I love about it: they have a little circle, and they actually make a sticker of the face and put the name of the route manager and his or her face on a sticker. And then the route manager has a book of stickers, and they just stick it on the little circle on the door hanger. And right beside it, it's a little QR code, and it says, "Happy with your service today. Leave us a 5-star review, and we will tip the tech $25 on your behalf." And
Awesome.
so and I mean, Ted has over 500 reviews, Dan,
Yep.
in a market that's like 300,000 people. So he is standing out, and again, 100% of the people get this, and
Yeah.
100% of the people probably look
It's a
at it,
great
right,
strategy.
and because they want to know about their
And the
yard.
reason it's so great is, again, it's these fundamental things, and we'll wrap up here, but it's these fundamental things that are the difference between companies who are good or great, that they do it every time, that they're consistently, their trucks are wrapped, that their signs are in place, that they have a great logo and brand, that they're talking to the right people. There are lots of cool advanced strategies. All of these strategies, they're leaving, they're doing the 9 around, they're doing 9 doors around every home. Like, that these fundamental things are in place. And when they are in place, like, these are things we all can do well. Like, we don't need to be rich to do any of these things well. And so let's go all do these things well. And once this becomes the standard of things, we'll come up with new things that need to make us stand out. But right now, these simple strategies these foundational, fundamental strategies will work to get you to where we want to go. And that's what we wanted to share with you today. We appreciate that you're listening, the tens of tens listening to our podcast. We love you. We hope you're doing well. And so go do more good in the world. And that'll be the end. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.